Girl,
Girl,
bye.
bye.
Girl, bye.
Bye, girl, bye.
Girl, bye. Girl, bye.
Welcome to your safe space, honey. This is Girl Bye, the podcast amplifying queer voices and kicking down the doors to so-called normalcy. Get ready for real talk, fierce discussions, and a whole lot of yes, honey. Welcome to Girl Bye. I'm your host, Manuel. Today, our guest is the one person that is the reason we are tied to our televisions and subscribe to Patreon.
Of
The
course.
person that has brought us the shows that you may know of best as Bad Boys Club, The House of Dolls, and The Come Up Atlanta. But most importantly, the person that gave us the plain Jane attitude before she even made it to Drag Race in Life's a Drag, the person that I am going to deem the godfather of queer TV, Karan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I am so glad to have you here with us. I know that a lot of people that want to know more about you.
Okay.
So let's get started. Tell people who you are a little bit, where you're originally from, and a little bit about your story.
I'm from Boston. I grew up with mom, and I just kind of came into the world of film with dreams and hopes of like I want to see more people like myself on these shows because it was very female driven. It was like heavily female driven when it came to like cast members and shows and stuff. And I was like, we need something for the gays, you know? We need something for the gays and the girls and everyone in between.
I know that watching Bad Boys Club, I officially was like, oh my God, there is a show where we can congregate and have an amazing time. When did you realize that you were part of the queer community?
I think I started to realize it when I started going to a club called Ego in Providence. It was like a very gay club, and it was my first time really going to a gay club, and I loved it. You know, when you were young, 18, you sneak into these 21 plus clubs or whatever the case may be. And so me and my friends were like sneaking in and becoming cool with like bouncers and bartenders and shit like that, just to like get in and kind of live this gay fantasy of life because we never got to really see that, you know, and Boston doesn't really have many gay clubs. Until recently, we started to get more, but yeah, it was just an escapism. And I think that's when I really started to like come into being a part of the community because even though I was gay, I still never felt like I was a part of the community, you know?
Yeah, depending on where you grow up, it's kind of hard. Growing up in New York, it was very different from a lot of people, which is why I really love taking time to do this because I think we all grow up in so many different cities that don't give you the same vibe, what you can see in your community and how to be more part of it. So, you know, you've got to sometimes escape and run away and see these places from a different perspective.
That's right.
So when you're growing up, you're sneaking into clubs. I think we were all sneaking into clubs. Do people sneak into clubs still today? Like, is that still a real thing? Can you still do that?
That's a good question. I don't know. Now it's like a lot more strict, but before
Yeah.
it was much easier.
Drop it in the comments if you're sneaking into clubs still and how you're doing it, because I don't think fake IDs work the same anymore. But
Not anymore.
yeah, they scan them now. So, what was it like growing up in your hometown, being queer, figuring out kind of life? What was that whole experience like for you?
It was hard. I mean, I never had my father in my life, so it was a very like single mom figuring it out situation. It was always a very like trying time to figure out like how to figure life out because my mom was also very young, so I think she was still trying to figure it out as I'm trying to figure it out, which led to just it being like, okay, what do we do, or how do we do this, or how do we figure this out, kind of situation.
Or what was your like experience in leaving, and why did you choose to leave your hometown?
Um, I I pretty much stayed in Boston all my life. I moved to LA for a year and a half, 2 years when I graduated high school, to pursue my dreams. And then it became too much and I moved back home. And then probably a year from that or so, you get into a relationship and you move in together. So then move to Rhode Island. And then now I'm back in Boston currently.
Well, Rhode Island, what was it like living there?
Honestly, yeah, I definitely felt out of place there as well. But I think that with my partner at the time and his family and friends, like they have all made me feel welcomed and everything was fine. But I mean, it was very obvious I was like the only black person in the area, in the neighborhood, and but I loved it. I mean, I got to, I remember one time I never cried from happiness. Essentially, like I never. I always wonder, like, how do people cry from being so happy? Like, how do people be like, I'm crying tears of joy? Because I've always wanted to experience that, because that's a beautiful feeling, it seems like. And I think that one day, as I was in the apartment and I look around and I'm like, wow, like I have a really nice place. I have a partner who I love. My career is going pretty well. As far as like, we were gaining like a bunch of followers and all this stuff like that. So that was great. And I think that was the first time like I got emotional and I was like, wow, like I have everything that I wanted. Like I live in a nice place and all this stuff. So that was the first time. I think it was a moment of feeling like, wow, okay, I'm supposed to be here. Because a lot of the times when I was living there, I kind of felt like sometimes I didn't belong just because of my skin color.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It was kind of like a moment of you feeling like you finally were where you needed to be at that right time.
yes, that's exactly, you put it into the perfect words. That's exactly how I felt. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. And I think that that's part of it, and especially in our younger years of life and just like navigating and trying to figure things out. I think growing up and trying to figure out who you are, what you want to accomplish, what your goals are, and then like, I don't know if everyone's like this. I know that some people that, are more financially well off in their younger years don't have so many like hard hits, but sometimes like you try things and the hard hits and like the failures and the stuff that you like really keep trying at trying to be successful at can sometimes really bring you down. So I think that's also like a moment where you can step back and be like, this is was a turning moment in my life that made me feel really, really good. So what made you get into film?
So remember, we like for the people who are watching, we had like a tiny conversation before we got on here, and I know that you mentioned bullying, and that was a big part of what happened when I was in school. Like I got bullied for being gay or too feminine or my features. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a very, very hard time of like figuring myself out, but also like pleasing everyone. And so to escape, because again, you're a kid in middle school. So for me, drugs and all that, alcohol and all that stuff wasn't an option. Like that was never something that went through my mind. Like, oh, I need a drink or I
Right.
need to smoke or whatever the case may be. So you figure it out, and I think for me, the release or the feeling of getting away from everything was going to the movies, and I loved going to the movies. I felt like I would escape from the world. I would live in this world of like action or horror or whatever it is that I wanted to see. And I started to really love that. And so I think that when in end of middle school, beginning of high school, I started to feel like, you know what? I think I want to start seeing like, why isn't there a boy version of Bad Girls Club? Why isn't there a gay version of Housewives? Why isn't there like, where are these shows at? Like this would have been these would be so cool because I knew people and I was like, damn, I wish they could be on camera on these shows because they're really funny and really like just
Right.
over the top. And I think that's when I started to take it into my own hands and started doing like a show with my family and then Bad Boys Club and all these other shows. And Bad Boys Club is the one that took everything off and made kind of each show after that kind of like a thing, you know.
Yeah, I totally understand that because I always, when I was started watching Real Housewives, and everybody used to talk about like, Phaedra's reads or Kenya's reads, and I'm like, these are okay. They're kind of mid reads. Like, if you got five or six gay men to read each other, this would be a reading challenge. Like, like out of all of those girls, I mean, I think Portia, maybe can like handle it, but like I really feel like a room full of gay men reading each other would be so funny.
Yeah,
And we have yet to have like that really hit on like a major network, and I don't know why. I'm like, this is like the funniest stuff that could be out there.
I agree.
Yeah. So when you're deciding to start your own um, filming process, when before you start your first show, what went through your mind in that? Like, what was that process?
I think it started from when I was like, I did this reality show called The Cousins with me and my cousins, and it was, it was like, it was a really trying show. Like, it just, if you could imagine, the confessionals were in like the bathroom, and like the, the camera quality was like putting a camera up on the couch, and all of us would sit in a circle and talk or whatever the case may be. It was just a very like, it was something to try, but it didn't make any sense. It caused drama within the family because of all the things that were trying to happen, and it just never worked out. And then I think I just kind of thought of like all my friends from different eras or periods of my life, and I was like, if I could pick like 7 people to be in a house together or to come together for a show, it'd be these people. So I reached out to all of them, and I was like, hey, would you guys be interested in doing like a Bad Boys Club show? And one of my friends joked about it and was like, "Yeah, you really should do like a Bad Boys Club show." And I was like, "You know what? We should." Cut to um, I reached out to them. They said yes. My aunt let me use her place to film because she was like, "Oh, I love this idea. Like, I'm going to support you. Let's do it." So she let me use her place, and then I just reached out to a person I knew who had a camera. And then also, I think the first week of filming, I found a camera on the street, like at a park, and it was just sitting there. And I felt like that was like destiny because I was like, what are the odds of me walking past, finding this camera with the camera, the lens, the battery, the charger, everything was literally right there. It was like something out of a movie where like you ask for something and then it was like, the light comes down, and it's like, ah,
Yeah.
like that. So I went around first to be like, whose camera is this? And nothing. So I was like, you know what? I think this is a sign. And that was my first ever camera. And I was
That is
off
so
the
wild.
races. Yeah, it's crazy.
There is somebody still looking for that camera
Oh,
somewhere.
I believe it. I know.
You know what though? Sometimes there's a moment and you just need to like, take it to the bank and figure it out. And I think, picking up that camera and using it and making stuff happen is the reason, 9 seasons into Bad Boys Club, it's amazing. And I think it's all about the drive and being able to get together and wanting to start it. But one thing that you said that I think is huge is people supporting you, right? Like
Yeah,
your friends and the people that you contacted to say, "Hey, come be a part of this and let's make it happen." And who knows, this may not go anywhere, but it could go somewhere, you know?
right.
And I think that's the journey. That's the biggest part of the journey because you get to learn a lot about a lot of people during that time frame as well.
Mhm.
So, being a person of a single mother family, how has
Mhm.
your relationship with your mom kind of grown from being a kid to like coming out and being yourself and her being a part of all of that?
At the beginning, it was very hard, like coming out. Like the whole process was very hard. It was very trying. But I think that, and kind of a like tip to anyone who is struggling with coming out, I think that you have to put your foot down and say, this is who I am, take it or leave it, and this is how I'm going to live my life. Because I think that then you take the power of giving people the option to make you feel less than, or you feel like, oh, this is not who I'm supposed to be, or whatever the case may be. You need to just accept it and tell people straight up. And if they don't like it, they do not have to be in your life. That's one thing. It feels like, I mean, essentially it is a loss, but like it's more of a gain because you're taking people out of your life who don't love you all because of what you prefer. And it's like,
Yeah.
get those people out of your life early so you don't have to keep dealing with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of cutting people off. I think that that is a huge thing that a lot of people don't realize. Like
Hmm.
if you lower your own standards, you're just allowing certain things to happen when you could put your foot down and be really stern about certain things. But in your journey, as a whole, and like with your family, with your cousins, with everyone, what were the tools that you were able to kind of best use, or what was best advice to help you kind of get through that process, other than just, being super firm, but also like, how did those conversations go?
They were hard. It was like trying to figure out if I would have to move or figure out where to live, and like those kind of things were always a thought in the back of my head.
Yeah.
Um, I think that for me, it's like I'm the type of person that like, regardless of whatever happens, I'm always gonna figure it out. So if, for example, like if we're hanging out and someone orders food, you know how like everyone gets upset, like, well, why didn't you tell me you were ordering food? I would have got food or whatever the case may be. I'm the type of person that's like, well, I'll go get my own food, and I don't like if this person was hungry, they ordered food for them. They don't have to go around the whole place and ask each person and then wait for everyone to send them. Like they don't have like. So I think to me, it's like I've always been like, it's not that big of a deal. Just order your own food because were you hungry before you noticed that the person ordered food, or what is the case? And I
Right.
think we just need to take situations into like being like, instead of it being like a whoa, it's me, or like, oh, whatever, just take it and be like, I could just do it myself. I could just handle this myself. This is hard, but I'll figure it out myself. That's the
For
easiest way to
sure.
like build up your confidence and like, yeah.
No, definitely. It makes total sense. I think it is about kind of almost owning it on your own and really being a part
Yeah.
of yourself. And when you kind of hold your own standards and really push yourself, you can kind of get past a lot of the blurry drama that kind of happens.
Hmm, hmm,
So you come out before you get into this relationship that moves you around and meet other people. What was dating like in general? Were you like an app person, an in real life person?
I think for me, it was like I've always, well, not always, but at the beginning, I was very feminine, right? And I had like long hair, like a bun, wore makeup. It was like this whole thing. And dating was very hard. And I think, I don't know if that played a part in it or if it was just because I was too young or whatever the case may be. But when I did get into a relationship, I felt really hard in the high school aspect of it. And so it was a very hard situation and a very hard breakup. But then, like, I think once, if I'm being honest, once I like changed my appearance and kind of like figured myself out a little bit more when it comes to like cutting off my hair and changing my style and doing different things, I think that's when I got a lot more attention, and that's when I was going on dates more. Yeah, I mean, I would check the apps here and there. Like, I mean, Tinder was definitely a big part in me getting into a relationship or going on dates. But yeah, it's just like it was hard at the beginning, and now it's much more easier if I wanted to date or go on dates or be in a relationship or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, if I feel personally with all of us as we figure out, okay, we might be queer, and be a little bit different than what we're supposed to be. So we kind of start trying to figure out who we are on the outside to match the inside of us, right? So
Hmm.
when you're kind of going through that, when you officially decided to kind of change your aesthetic on the outside, what were some of the main things that you felt made you feel really, really good when you were doing that?
I think that change to me is always scary, but I feel like it's inevitable. Like you have to change to grow, right? And I think that when it came to me finding myself, I felt like the very feminine me, I wasn't essentially like attracted to myself. Like when I would look, I wouldn't be like, that. In my head, I was like, I wouldn't date anyone like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I kind of was thinking like, you need to make yourself into what you would want to look like and what you would want to attract, right? So I think that they say like, oh, like be what you attract or something along those lines, or like put yourself in situations that you'll get what you want or whatever. So I
Right.
think I started doing that. I started to be like, okay, this is what I want. This is what I want to look like. This is what I want to do. And I think if I'm being honest, I think all of us, not all of us, but majority of us in the gay community, when we start off like figuring out the whole gay thing, I think we go to the extreme first and then start to tone it down because you TV and movies has always made gay be like this like yes queen and like long nails and makeup and dresses and all this stuff. And it's like not every gay person is like that, like
Right.
and not everyone is like that. But I think when we start off, we're always like in our mom's closet trying on the heels or trying on whatever it is, and then
Yeah.
you pop up with a crop top on and a little bag. You look
Yeah.
back at it years later and you're like, okay, I was still figuring myself out at that time. I was,
Yeah, you were like, I opened the door and I ran out.
yeah,
I,
exactly.
I
I sprinted out.
Yeah, I genuinely do feel that. I feel like a lot of us, from like spending so much time keeping that part of ourselves a secret and kind of almost
Hmm.
trying to hide it and fit into societal norms. I think when we do kind of say, okay, screw it, we don't even care. We're just going to let people know we're gay. We don't care what people think. I do think that we go as far as you can go. Like you're like, I would leave my house. When I first came out, I probably, if I would have had a wig, I probably would have left out in full drag and just said screw it and see what
Yep,
happens. You know what I mean?
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
but definitely, as time goes on, you do change your aesthetic a lot, and I think it's very interesting to hear you talk about kind of like this part of your life where you did not find yourself as attractive as maybe other people did or things like that because I mean anybody's looking at your Instagram that is not the case by any
Well,
means with the skin routine that I don't know what it is, but we need to drop it in the comments whatever the skin routine is.
are you look at yours? You're talking about me. Your skin routine is like your skin routine looks like
Listen,
it's really good.
my skin routine is not good at all. I am not consistent with it. I will tell everybody I have breakouts every now and then. Good lighting can help you a lot. So, just I'm super honest with that cuz I'm really bad about skincare. Now, I do lotion and sunscreen every day, and I think a lot of people don't pay attention to that, and that is super important.
Essential.
Essential. When you decide you're going to start recording season 1 of Bad Boys, we go through the journey of recording.
Hmm.
Did you from day one think that like this would be a show that would give you multiple seasons, or did you just say, "Hey, it looks good, it's kind of good, let's make it happen and we'll see what happens." And was there like a time later in the show that made you feel like that?
I think for me, it was just an experimental thing, just to do for fun. Like the same way I did the show with my cousins was the same way I did Bad Boys Club. I never in my mind thought it was going to take off and do anything. I mean, maybe subconsciously you think to yourself like, "Oh, what if this did do good?" Like to me, 100 views was like, "Okay, hold on now. A lot of people have seen this. You guys need to respect me in the classroom now. I got 100 people who watch this." And that was a big deal for me, like so when I would get like 80, like in my mind I'm like, this is more people than what's in my classroom. So like this is crazy. And then you get 100 and then next thing you know it starts going up to like 500 and then 1,000. And then it becomes this thing where it's like I think it just rapidly took off. Like everyone at the schools were talking about it. Everyone on social media was talking about it because we didn't have anything like that. Like that
Right.
was something that never was done. So everyone was just like, "Did you see that there's a boys' version of Bad Girls Club? And there's like the gays and like it's real fighting and all this other stuff." And so it would catch everyone's attention because they'd be like, "Wait, what? Let me see. I need to see this."
Right.
So it blew up, And as the time went on, I was like, "Well, I definitely need to do another one, but where am I going to find a house? Like, how am I going to do this?" And that was the first time that we started kind of trying to produce a little bit. That's because producing wasn't something necessarily I was good at the beginning. I think I just pointed the camera and let stuff happen, like, and if something was to happen, it'd be like, okay, well, I mean, yeah, like we can walk and talk about something, but I never like the
Yeah.
way I produce now, I didn't produce then. It was two totally different things. So once more seasons started happening and more views and all this stuff started going on and like clubs access to like host parties in New York and all this stuff. I was like, okay, it's kind of becoming a thing where I think we should continue and start being more like how do we elevate it? How do we make
Right.
this a bigger thing? Because again, I it was a $0 budget, so the reunion was in a basement that I worked
Yes.
like a week and a half clearing out that basement. It was still dusty. Ran out of paint. If you seen the back of the wall, it was half blue and then half gone. Ran out the paint, so because I was trying to paint the background blue.
Yeah.
Um, got these like little rental chairs from a bar, and it just and then I had the nerve to have an audience down there, which was like I don't know what
Yeah.
I was thinking. I was just very ambitious, and I was like, this is gonna work some way. Like this is going to make sense.
I lived. I'm
Um,
telling you, the moment I watched that reunion, I was like, no, this is so funny because it's something that, like, I think when we watch TV, hit TV nowadays, the first episode of anything, they had so much money put into these, like, first episodes where, like, I felt like when I was watching that first season of Bad Boys Club, I was like, this literally what made me want to continue to watch was the fact that I was like, this is so real. This is literally like somebody just walking around with their phone, recording this shit to make it happen, you
yeah,
know? And I think
no, literally,
that's what had us hooked, right? Because even Bad Girls Club was pretty produced in certain concepts. You know what I mean? Like every episode, every season, somebody threw something in the pool, somebody's clothes or
yeah.
somebody's pillow or whatever. So like watching Bad Boys in those really early seasons, I was like, this is wild.
Yeah, it was wild, unstructured, and let me tell you how real in the trenches it was. I didn't have a computer. I couldn't afford a computer. Um, and so my cousin, she lived down the street, and her boyfriend at the time was security for Bad Boys Club season one. And I don't know if you know the Macs, like the first desktops that came out. They had that, and they never used it. And I was like, could I edit my show at your house? And he was like, yeah. I didn't know how to edit, so I'm sitting there playing around with stuff, trying to figure it out. And people would be like, okay, when's the next episode? I'm like, I don't know. I have to go back over there and edit again. Like, I have to ask her. I don't have a computer. So it was just a very, like, using all the resources that I had around me, like, and making it work. And I think people appreciate it because it was so, like you said, so raw and real.
Yeah.
And I think people also like to see, like, each season there was, like, improvement. Something was improving. Something was happening. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely great to see you leave the basement.
No, literally, literally.
I was like, I remember watching that reunion and thinking to myself, this is so unsafe. Like a fight break out in this basement. Like this is
Someone's
not
head could
good.
hit the rock or something, or like, I don't know. It was crazy.
I lived for it. I thought it was such an amazing thing. So, let's fast forward through your journey. You put
Hmm.
out the latest season of Bad Boys Club,
Hmm.
and we're in this amazing house, in this amazing place. I'm like,
Hmm.
this house is an upgrade. Where did you kind of get the idea to like find this house, do really upgrade from the apartment
Yeah.
with where they messed up that TV to now?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, I told myself after seven that if I was to, so when I did season seven, I put the reunion out on OnlyFans, right? So we were charging people, and it skyrocketed and put us at the top, like literally like 0.1%. Like it was crazy. And even OnlyFans was sending emails and everything like that. Like, I don't know what's going on, but like, congratulations, your channel's taken off because so many people were subscribing. And the
Yeah,
reason why is because one, I had to pay off that damn TV, and that TV was over $1,000. And then also, the reunion got ruined and stuff got broken at the reunion. So I'm like, okay, like, yeah, we made money, but also like at the reunion, you see how many like security and I had like a huge team at that reunion for season seven. So all those people had to get paid. So whatever I was making from the audience, I was paying out to security, paying out to cameramen, paying out to producers. So
right.
I also was like, okay, how am I going to make money for myself? I'm going to have to put the reunion on OnlyFans. OnlyFans also was like, well, this is very violent, so you can't show people bleeding and all this other stuff like that. So we had to work around it. But that money that I made, I was like, okay, if I do another season, I'm gonna want to get a house this time. Like we can't do apartments. And then that's when the Texas season came about. And I was looking at all these Airbnbs and I was like, oh my God, if I drop this kind of money on an Airbnb, I need to make it back. And it was just a big risk that I was like, I'm just gonna jump into it. And I did, and it worked out. And that's the reason why the last couple
Yeah.
shows have had these nice houses and all this stuff is because then I moved over to people paying to watch it, and that really helped out. So, I mean, there are people who are always like, why are you charging or whatever? And I'm like, well, because now you see how much it has improved because I'm actually to
Yeah.
put this money into it.
We're no longer at the park down the street and in a basement. We're in a
Exactly.
house now.
We're
Like,
in
what are we doing?
Miami and the backyard's the water. And we
Yeah.
have, what I'm saying? Like we have much better stuff this time. So
Yeah,
it
and
was
I
nice.
think what I found the most interesting, kind of moving from that the apartment to that first house in Texas, I also felt like the vibe of the show was very different. Like
Oh,
just between the
mhm.
guys and everything, I felt like even the cast walking in the door almost like it gave more of like the shock of like holy shit, like we're not in an apartment or like in a two-bedroom. We actually have like space. We all have a bed.
That's
Like
what
this is
they all
wild,
said too. They were all like, wait, we have our own beds. I'm like, yeah. Like they were just like, we have more than one bathroom and we have our own beds and whoa, we have a backyard with a hot tub. Yeah, it was beautiful because it was like like when we got there, because before we shoot, me and production gets there, we set up everything. We take away all like the
Right.
knives and everything, and pretty much we like make the house safe. So that way when chaos happens, we don't have to worry about something breaking or whatever
Correct.
the case may be. And so as we were walking around, they just was like, you need to stop for a second and look at like how you this is compared to what you just did the previous seasons when you were just
Right.
at a random apartment. And I did. I was like, wow, it is kind of crazy to think about how we are here now.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I think and I can see where like you're in work mode, right? You're like, let's get this
Yeah,
done, let's get this recorded, let's get this moving. And I think it's amazing that your team is like, hey, take a breather and like look around for a second because it's
yeah,
it's real. I mean, it's crazy how you've really come from a basement to a really beautiful home. Like it's crazy
yeah,
how the show has evolved, and I think we haven't even seen something evolve that big, even like watching Bad Girls Club. You know what I mean?
yeah.
That first season, it wasn't the same kind of growth, and I think that's why we're all connected. We're all like, oh yeah, what's next?
And the
And the
stories are really
people,
good too. The
yeah,
stories are like real life stories that in the community you can relate to. I mean, like we try to give as real and raw as possible, with the hookups and the crying and the arguments, like everything that's happening is like this is real shit. Like we don't try to overproduce it. We just lay out like, okay, this is what's going on and this is what we want to capture throughout the season, and we let it kind of happen organically. Like if there's a certain moment where we want someone to talk about something, we'll say, hey, today we think that you should bring up this situation that you told us about before filming about you going through this. And I think you should bring it up to whoever you can trust, like bring it up in the kitchen or in your bedroom. So we'll still get the story, but let them kind of do it on their own terms. You know what I mean? So.
yeah. Has there ever been a moment over all the years of filming that you stepped in to like advise calming down a situation?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. There's been a few times. I think when I remember this like it was yesterday. We were filming season three, and there was a fight that broke out between two boys, Christian and Josiah, and it was one of the most graphic fights I think I've ever recorded because it was just like it was insane. And the fight got so out of hand that each of them brought their friends with them to make sure like nothing happens. And as the fight was going on, they kept going round and round and round or whatever the case may be. And I think once they broke it up, or they were trying to break it up because somebody was on top of the other person, the friend jumped in, then another friend jumped in, and it became this whole big thing. And so I had to put the camera down and be like, you guys need to stop because one person pulled out like a pocket knife, and I was like, okay. like this is getting way too out of hand. So that was a situation where we had to stop recording and kind of calm something down.
Yeah.
And then another situation was we filmed season 8 Texas, and a lot of stuff happened when D was being sent home. Um, a lot of stuff happened behind the scenes. Like there was so much shit that was going on. And that night when him and Vonnie fought like 3 or 4 times and stuff
Yeah.
was breaking and they fought in the kitchen, and that night was another night that was like I had to step in and like we had to calm the whole thing down because that night was just insane.
Yeah. Now, as you're kind of going through all of these memories of the show in general,
Hmm.
um, you are there the entire time. You're part
Hmm.
of the recording process. You're kind of like all, hands on to really everything of the process, which is amazing. Because really, I mean, as time continues to go on, I think a lot of people typically try to get further and further away from certain processes.
Right.
But in your time of like doing all of that, was there ever a time where you were like, I don't want to be a part of this process anymore? Or has it always been like, I want to be here, I want to be a part of that entire building process?
I think because I'm such a psycho when it comes to like I need to be hands on with everything because honestly that's how I started off, you know, like I started off doing every single thing. So putting my trust into people, and I've tried it many a times before, and not all the time people have let me down, but a lot of times people have let me down, and either they're not as committed to doing it or something messes up or whatever the case may be. So I always feel like
Mhm.
if you want it done, you really have to like do it yourself, or you have to bring people around who's also gonna like take it there with you. I think honestly, the 2 seasons we were about to film for the Doll season 2 and for Bad Boys Besties, that was
Mhm.
actually going to be that. Those were the 2 seasons I was actually taking a step back, and they were going to like do everything, and I was just only going to be there to direct it. So
Right.
it was going to be a very big not a big difference as far as like how you see the show, because I think the show still would look the same as any other season, but I think that it would just be different on the back end with like cast members would have been like, oh yeah, I don't know, I haven't seen Karan. He's just been standing behind the cameras directing it. Like he hasn't really been talking to us because each cast member was going to have their own producers as well, like solidly for them all season. So no one was going to be able to come to me or have communication with me to make it easier for me, you know.
Right.
But I think that's kind of what we were transitioning over into, was me starting to kind of step back and like be like, all right, well, I'm not going to be a part of this as much as I was before.
And I think that would also give you a little bit more space to kind of do more than one project at a time too, right? Because then you're
Yeah.
yeah, because right now you're filming. I mean, you got to wait till you're free to film again. You know what I mean? Like it's
Right.
you can't really
Yeah.
yeah. And with I mean, you now with so many shows. I mean, the Life's a Drag. What made you decide to do that? Coming from the Bad Boys realm, House of
Yeah.
Dolls, to Life's a Drag.
I think that I was thinking to myself, like, we have RuPaul and we have RuPaul's Drag Race, right? So I personally, and again, I make shows based off of what I want to see. That's the reason why like these shows come about, because I'm like, okay, now I want to see a show about this, and then I'll think about it, and then I'll think to myself like, okay, are you really going to do it or not? I've come up with so many show ideas, but I don't follow through with it because some of them I'm just like, oh, you were just talking, like I don't know. So with that, I was like, I kind of would love to see a drag show that kind of is like Love and Hip Hop or Housewives, where you get to see their lives and what it is to be a drag queen, them performing, them being in a friend group, them going through personal issues. Like I see drag queens, but you only kind of see the glamour side of it when it comes to like them getting ready, them doing challenges. So I wanted to see lives of drag queens, you know? So I came up with the idea and I was talking to some people and it was like, honestly, we think you should do it. Like, I think it could be something really special. And also, I wanted something that didn't show fighting. Because I was like, I've done all these shows with fighting. I want to show something that has no fighting in it, where, yeah, they can resolve their issues and yell or whatever. But I knew that as drag queens, because their careers are kind of a little bit more like established already before they did the show, they would have something to lose by fighting, like by fist fighting each other.
Right.
So I think that was also something that was like, if I go into a board meeting essentially and I can show something, at least I could show this project and be like, I did a whole show and there was no fighting and it was still very entertaining.
Right.
So that was kind of another reason why we did it. And then I've known kind of all those girls. I've known Plain for a while. I've met Corey recently. Stefania, I've seen, like, these girls I've seen around. Some of them I've seen
Yeah.
around. So it was kind of like how Bad Boys Club was. I thought about the people who I thought would be perfect for this show. I reached out to them, and they all were like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then one girl pulled out like 1 week before filming, so I had to find another girl. And Plain reached out and was like, "Hey, I heard you were looking for another person. You should get my daughter on because that will bring a lot more, like, it'll
Yeah.
bring a lot more
The
to the
drama.
story and
The
the
drama.
drama." And also, like, she was like, she knows me, so like we could talk about personal stuff more than I can with these girls. And so I met her and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I love her. And then we casted her and then we did it. And in Boston, it's a very, very big deal. Like, the show was,
I mean, I think it's a big deal in general. Like, I watch everything drag related.
yeah.
But we have talked about this before where um, there was like a little weird season where like RuPaul's Drag Race had like the Las Vegas girls and they were like in the background and like they were
Hmm.
all like just fighting with each other. Um, and I really liked that idea of the show, but I felt like it needed to be more. And so when he brought up like that you're doing the show, I was like, Life's a Drag. I was like, okay, let's watch this. So we start watching it, and then I want to say maybe like a month later was the first like release of like the new cast of Drag Race, and I was like, that's Plain Jane. Like we just watched
Yeah,
so
sure
much about
was.
Plain Jane, and so we were
Yeah.
we were so invested. And I thought what was really good about that particular show was the fact that it was kind of like a housewives vibe where I felt like we were going to see these girls yell and scream at each other, but it was going to give us something that we wanted to see, which is like
Yeah.
this background of who these people are and like what it really means to be a drag queen.
Right.
um, so I just thought like the whole concept was amazing, and that's why I kind of brought it up a little bit. Where like, where did you even come up with that idea of just wanting to highlight, just that side of drag where we don't get to see the ugly of drag ever.
Yeah. And that's
Well,
exactly
we do
why I
see
wanted
some ugly girls. Let me, let me not
to.
say ever. We do see some ugly girls every now and then, but
Yeah, I think that's the reason why, because I just wanted to. I was interested myself in being like, what is it like to just, like, in your life, like, what is going on, And they were so busy that I'm like, how do you juggle all of this? Like, this is a lot. So, we filmed as much as we could and we followed the stories as much as we could, but I loved it. I thought it was a great show, and I'm very happy with playing, getting on Drag Race, and what else may come from the rest of the girls on Life's a Drag, So.
yeah,
You
I know I
never
do
know.
follow all of them. That is the one show I follow every single person. Because I was hooked from the moment that started. So you succeed in creating a show
Mhm.
that really blows up. Does your status in school, because you were still really, really young in school putting out the show, does your status change? Do you become like the most popular kid in school, or are your bullies the same?
I think it changed as far as like what the bullying goes, because there wasn't many people who started bullying me anymore. A lot of people were talking about it at school, which led to the teachers talking about it, and they would bring it up as well. Sometimes it kind of would be like problematic, and then sometimes they just make jokes about it, like, "Oh yeah, I seen your Bad Boys stuff. I watched your Bad Boys stuff." I'm like, oh, you know. But yeah, it was a lot of mixed things. But I think a lot of people just always wanted to talk about it. They always just was like, "How? What are you guys doing? When is the next one? When is the?" And I just be
Yeah.
like, "I don't know. Whenever we figure it out." But also, it did make a shift in my personal life because when gay people in the city would have these house parties or get-togethers, the first thing they'd be like is to not invite me because they assumed that because I was filming Bad Boys Club that that was my life, and they thought, oh, if he comes, he's gonna want he's gonna make someone fight or he's gonna want to fight someone. And I'm like, I'm not even like that. What are you talking about? Like, just because I'm producing a show has nothing to do with whatever. So that also played a big part in my personal life of like me trying to find friends and really have like a knit of like gay people around because a lot of the gays were like,
Yeah,
he's gonna bring drama and ghetto people and they're gonna start fighting at this party. No, I was like, okay,
that
whatever.
is from what I've learned of your story in general, being so young, producing a show that actually does get a lot of following, kind of does change your whole life a lot in
Hmm.
that short period of time. And so you're trying to still navigate growing up. Like you're still trying to figure out what it is to be
Right.
yourself, be truly you. During this time frame, what did you find to be the most useful, either tool or like meditating or whatever that you felt helped you the most kind of ground yourself with everything going on?
I think that I just stuck to my best friends that I had, um, and they could spot out like phony people or anything like that. So they were very protective over me. So when it came to anything that seemed fishy or whatever, they'd always like step in and kind of say something or whatever. But also, I've always, I mean, at the beginning, I've always kind of been a loner, so I've always took everything with a grain of salt. Like if I was out somewhere and someone was interested in dating me, but really that's not their intention. Their intention is to get on the show or to try and record something while we're hanging out. Then I kind of would figure, but I don't know. I've always taken everything with a grain of salt. Like I feed off of energy, so if I feel like your energy is nasty or whatever, I start to be very distant, and I remove myself
Yeah.
like right away from that.
Did that happen a lot, like over the years? I mean, probably still. Does that still happen to you a lot, where like people try to, date you or like go out with you or like just to try to like get into your circle or get on the show?
Yeah, yeah. A
Is
lot of
that do
people
you
do.
have that? Do you have that listed on like your dating profile if you want to get on the show? That's not the
I don't
way.
even have a date. I have no dating profiles at the moment. I am in a relationship now, but I think that I'm so private about stuff that I'm like, that's the reason why people don't know. I'm just very private now about everything. But if I decide to be public or anything like that, I will. But I think that like in even in my dating profile, I never wanted to put like my Instagram or anything because then that would lead to YouTube or them seeing the shows, and I'd be like, I don't want
Yeah.
that, because they'd be
When
like,
when you were single and dating and stuff, and like you're in your hometown, you're definitely gonna get noticed.
yeah.
Um, how did you kind of navigate that dating space when you're trying to figure that out? Was there any like major like red flags that you looked out for that was like, oh no, this date is over?
Yes, but I think for me, like I've been in my whole life, I've been in four relationships, and each relationship happened organically. It was meeting them or running into them somewhere. It's always been like an organic situation. The only time it was through a dating app was the second relationship, which was on Tinder. That was kind of how we met. But every other relationship was either running into them at like a party or a club or an event. And they had no idea who I was, but they were very interested, and so yeah, it all just happened very organically. And I think that's what made the relationship work because it was very much
Right.
like, well, they don't know anything about me. They're getting to know me genuinely. So I'm like, oh, it makes it much easier for me to like get to know this person because they're not like, oh yeah, I know who you are. I've seen your stuff, and they already have a preconceived notion of who I am. So I think yes, like that's the easier part is getting to know me if I don't know the person or they don't know me. But also, like, it is
Hmm.
kind of hard because then if the person's like, "Oh yeah, I watch your shows, I love it," I kind of get like, "Oh shit." Oh.
Yeah, you're like, okay, next. Time to move to the next one because you already
Time to
watched the
move
show.
on.
Yeah, I totally understand what that puts you in is a place where you don't know people's true intentions, right? Like you don't know why
Right.
people are genuinely around, and I think that that's super hard, especially for everyone as we continue to grow. I mean, I think even like a lot of these drag queens that go from being a local queen to being on TV and growing so fast and so big, you never know people's
Yeah.
true intentions of like what they're bringing in. And I'm an energy person, so if you're an energy sucker, I cannot. I'm like, oh, I cannot.
No,
You're
literally,
killing
yeah.
the room. Yeah. So when you're kind of going through life, what were the best tools to help you stay grounded through all of this crazy adventure?
I think maybe feeling like I still haven't made it kind of always humbled me because I'm like, I still haven't made it. I'm still not where I want to be. So I think that always was in the back of my head and always made me feel like, well, you're not where you want to be yet. So you can't, like, even if I was to like act a certain way, it's like, well, you haven't made it yet. So you shouldn't be acting like nothing. You know what I'm saying? So I think that
Yeah.
always was kind of in my mind.
Now, what is your ultimate life goal?
I think that's a really good question because I'm currently in the thick of it of trying to figure out what that is. I don't know, which is very scary, but I do know that like I'd love to create and I'd like to make a lot of money off of that. Like I'd like to make a lot of money off creating and just get the house, the car, or whatever that or whatever it is that I want and just travel the world. I think that's if I could just get paid and travel the world, I'd be a very happy. I'm sure anyone would, but that kind of is the goal is just to make a bunch of money and travel and have the freedom of doing what I want.
Hashtag all of us would love to
Yeah,
just get paid to be traveling. That is my my also goal is to just be paid to travel. I think this is amazing for you to kind of take this time to really understand and have a clear line of sight of what you want to accomplish too. I think I know like for me in my life, I've pushed so much and you get so in the weeds of like trying to make everything work that when stuff starts working, you're almost so far in the weeds that you don't get to take that step back to say, okay, what is it that I really want to push to achieve here? Because you've accomplished a lot in a very
hmm
short amount of time with having pretty long running shows. Bad Boys Club is on more seasons than a lot of TV shows in history. So with having some of this stuff so young and being so accomplished in a lot of those, I think it's really amazing that you have a connection with your fans where you really do kind of say, hey, this is my time to really start navigating what's next and where do I want to go from here.
yeah,
And figuring out what your next major thing is too. I think there's sometimes time for the end of one chapter and the beginning of another, and it can be an abrupt we flipped the
yeah,
page. That's it.
exactly, exactly.
We
Yep,
don't have to keep going.
exactly.
Yeah. So with your experience that you have in life, if you were to meet a 17-year-old version of you, what would be the advice you give that person?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe to listen to the signs of things that are happening. Like pay attention to why certain things are happening and aren't happening. And don't get so excited about stuff until it actually happens. I think that's another thing. Is like just listen to the signs of life. Every little detail of life, listen to the signs and see. And I think that would have been a great thing. And I think me being 17, at first I was like, what? But then I think once life started happening, moving forward, I'd be like, oh,
Yeah,
that
like,
makes
oh, that
sense.
made sense. I won't make
That
that
makes
mistake
sense.
twice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In
Okay.
your time of being a producer, going through all of these things, is there a huge mistake that you've made that you wish you could have done differently?
Ooh.
Or something that you wish you just didn't do at all? You know what I mean? Like, it could be that too.
I mean, if I was to be honest, there was certain people that I casted I wish I had never casted or met in my life. I think that is a big part of like just also this plays into the signs thing. Like there were
Yeah.
signs of like this is probably not a good idea, but because of what they could bring to the show, it was always about like, oh, well, this could be good for the show. But personally, I was like, I don't think this is good to bring someone like this into your life.
Right.
But I was kind of focused on like, well, they could be great for the show, so maybe we'll just do that. and I think that that could be something. Um, and I think also maybe I was very snippy at the very beginning when it came to people being very like critiquing because sometimes I always felt like it came from a negative place, but sometimes people would just give you critiques on like things that could help, you know? So I think that also I should have taken that in more without thinking every single time someone's like, oh, you should get mics. And I'm like, why? Why? The camera's fine. You can hear them, right? So why would I need microphones? Like, you know what? Okay, fine, forget it. And then I'm like, you know what? Actually, no. But having mics is good now because when they're outside and it's loud, you can hear them. Or if they're having a private conversation, you can. So it's like I think those kind of things.
Yeah. And I think it's a part of art, right? I think if you were
Yeah,
to walk up to a painter and be like, "Oh, if you use this paintbrush, it will probably be easier." They're probably going to be like, "Fuck off. This is my painting."
exactly. Because you get protective over it, and you're like, this is mine. This is something that I'm working on. I don't want you telling me what to do or how to do it. But I do get like if it's coming from a nice place that it's not bad. You know, it's not all bad.
Yeah.
So
No, I love that, and I think it's true. It's part of the journey. It's part of figuring out how to um, take constructive criticism versus, the people that are just salty and upset or over dumb stuff.
yeah.
And I think we see it a lot too in just life in general. Like, I know that I watch a lot of your stories on Instagram, and when people post about something stupid, like I remember it doesn't happen so much now, but like in the earlier seasons, like season 2, season 3, when like an episode wouldn't air on the day and then people are in the comments acting crazy, I'm like, y'all act like this is a professional show that's made on a huge network. Like, this is not Survivor, and it's not pre-recorded, like 2 years in advance, and they edit
Right.
and clean it up. Like, this is a 5-person show that is being edited by one person, and there's people running around. Like, it's not, doesn't work like that. So
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting how just like time has evolved. And then even going to Patreon and seeing some people talk about having to pay for it, I'm like, y'all pay for everything else. How many of y'all are playing for WoW Presents right now?
And I'm just like, and that's kind of the thing. I'm like, so is it because I'm a smaller creator? Is it because what? Like, what is the reason as to why this is such like a big deal sometimes? But I've learned to just be like, you know what? It is what it is. Like, I'm not forcing anyone to subscribe or pay. You know, I'm not. So it's kind
Yeah.
of a
If you don't want to
situation where
watch
it's like,
anymore, just don't watch.
exactly. Like, I'm not like that's fine. You don't want to watch? It's okay.
Yeah.
I'll continue to do whatever I'm doing.
People are
So
going to watch, and the core fans are still watching. So it doesn't really matter,
yeah.
which I find so funny because I really felt, when you read some of these comments of some of the people, even on the YouTube channel and stuff, and sometimes people are just so upset. I'm like, y'all are mad, but you're are talking to yourself.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, certain comments, I'm just like, it is not that serious. Like, oh my, you would think that it was like, I found the cure to something or I had like this thing. I mean, I guess to them, because they're invested in the shows, I get it. But I think that when stuff happens, I don't think that to respond in that kind of way is going to help anything, you know? And I don't think
Right.
wishing death on the person who is creating the entertainment you want to see makes any sense either. But
Yeah, like
anyway,
you're really mad that the show didn't air on time today, but you want somebody to be murdered so that it never airs again? Like,
I
I'm
mean, yeah,
confused.
then now you'll never get it. So pick one, you know, like, what do
Yeah,
you want?
people are truly wild.
Yeah.
So, for everybody listening, what is one major thing you would want everyone to know about you as an individual?
I think I get the freaking, like, people always think that because I produce these shows that I'm like the people in these shows. And I think that when people meet me, the one thing that everyone always says is like, wow, you're nothing like I thought you would be. I thought you'd be like this loud, crazy, raunchy, ratchet person who lives for drama and is just always like gonna start shit. And I'm like, no, that is not me. In my personal life, like with friends and everything is so peaceful because that's not what we do, you know? we go out, we have a good time, we drink, we party with people. We're not into that. Like that's work. And I think people don't get the fact that my work life is completely different than my personal life. And I think people get very surprised by that. And I think that's always going to be a thing because when you're in a toxic work environment like that, of course you're going to be attached to that. So I
Yeah,
get it, but also you don't see me. You've never seen a video of me out here on the street fighting someone or spitting on someone or getting into brawls
never.
at the club. Like you don't see that because I don't. I'm not in that kind of stuff, you know. And it would have to take something for me to really be involved in like something like that. Like it'd have to be like me defending my friend or something if they got hit or
Right.
something. I don't know. But yeah.
And that would have to be wild because the people around would have had to have their phones out to record. And if it's my friends and it's my situation and they're recording with their phone, when I'm done fighting, I'm gonna fight them because they should have been helping me.
Yeah, put your phone down and let's go. Like, what are you doing?
That
Sure.
part. So, to wrap up this episode, the only way we know how, by being a little bit shady, who would you officially like to say girl bye to?
Like to say, girl, bye to someone whose name starts with an
No,
L.
she's British.
And I just want to say, girl, bye, because I think that people continue to try to like tear you down. And I think people think they can break you by just doing anything or saying anything. And I think that when they see that it doesn't affect you, it kind of drives them more crazy. And I think that seeing how one thing I do is if I'm into it with someone or we're going back and forth or there's a problem, I'm never going to be the one to just flat out gun for you. I'm gonna let you do everything first, and then I'll respond to what I want to respond to clear up if it does bother me. If it doesn't bother me, then there's nothing to respond to. But if there is something where it's like, nope, this needs to be corrected or straight, then I will. So I think that certain people try to like pull out all these guns and everything like that. And then when I put out the truth and I actually have like evidence of it and everything like that, everyone then looks back and is like, so you lied this whole time and try to make us think X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, yeah, and that's the reason why I wasn't tripping because I know the truth and now everyone else knows the truth. So,
Yeah,
girl, bye.
period. I think people forget that like receipts exist. Like
Yes,
we're, we're in the land of technology
we
and
are.
everything that you say, do, whatever is probably somewhere on social media.
Hmm.
And the receipts are here. But definitely girl bye. So for everybody listening, I know that as of recent, you are gonna take a hiatus, right? Is it gonna be
Yeah,
officially a hiatus or is it not?
I think right now I have no desire to film anything. And so for me, there's no like me making this announcement yesterday and then I'm like, oh yeah, by November I'll be back or by December I'll be like there's no return date. There's no thought of like if even is a return, you know, I could fall in love with whatever I'm trying to pursue now and be like, this was meant for me.
Yeah.
I've done what I wanted to do in the space of creating and shows. I've gotten the plaque that I worked so hard for. I've got to meet really cool people. I've gotten to see cast members from my show make it on TV. Like I've kind of seen these things of what can happen, you know, from
Right.
these opportunities. And so I'm very happy with what I've done. And I think that kind of ending it now with Bad Boys Reunited is honestly the perfect way because it's like people are coming together, we're reuniting. It's not a show just about fighting, but it's like this story. And it only gets crazier because I know that there's been like people saying, like, oh, like we want more or whatever, like that. Trust and believe the rest of this project is going to blow your mind because it blew mine and it was something that never happened while we were filming. And I'm just like, oh, and even the cast members are like, when this comes out, this is going to be social media is going to be on fire. And I know it already. Like, it's going to be a big thing.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of excited to see everyone's reaction to it, and it's in the finale, which is the honestly, it's the perfect way to close it out because the way that I closed it out isn't how I ever closed out a show before. It's a very dramatic, big thing, and I
Yeah.
can't wait. But to go back into what I was saying, yeah, there's no date as far as like coming back or anything like that. But if I do decide one day, down the line, I'm like, hey, you know what? I kind of want to go back and make a show. I'll either make one show a year, or maybe I'll go back and do five shows in a year, or three, or it
Yeah.
really all depends. Or let's say, not, I'm hypothetically speaking, let's say tomorrow VH1 or MTV reaches out and is like, hey, we want to put you on for producing. Then I think maybe I'd go back and be like, all right,
Yeah.
let's see what this could bring,
Yeah.
But as of right now, not I think I know because I already announced it and
Yeah.
everything like that. Um, I know that this is the end of the road as for right now, but the door is not officially closed. I think the door is like, how like the door has like that latch where it's like if you push it, it could open, but right now there's no way it's gonna open unless you push it to open.
Right.
So it's
It's
like
like
that.
almost there. And I think that what I find to be amazing about kind of like the post that you posted yesterday and like talking to you today about all of these different things, what I find the most amazing is it's truly a real emotion. I mean, I feel like we all go through things, we all do projects, we're all part of like these building of certain things, and you get to a point where it's got to come to an end to make space for something bigger and better and more successful. And I think hashtag MTV. Where you at? RuPaul has finally made it to MTV. It is now officially open for all queer people to now jump on this
Yeah,
platform, right? I
yeah,
think we have drag queens on House of Villains and Traitors, and
yeah,
I think it is
exactly.
wild what TV has become nowadays. So I think it is time for the next chapter and to see what's next to come from you. I know we're all excited. But it's also really, really smart for you to take some time to decompress. And also, this will probably be a time for you to look at everything you've done,
Yeah,
which you probably have not done,
I know.
um, and really take it all in of like where you are now.
I agree. I think that this is a beautiful way to leave it here and also to look back and reflect and then Uh, yeah, I don't know. I'm excited too. I mean, I know that I do love creating, so maybe in some form of way I'll still be into creating. Because one thing that a lot of people did say was like, I'm really excited to see what's next because they know like maybe it could be in the creative field or not. But I mean, I'm sure whatever it is, it's gonna be a nice
Yeah.
way of me going into this next chapter.
I think my excitement is the fact that you're not going to be tied up with anything.
Yes.
So, like, what does that mean to get a? Because the last time you were not tied up with anything, we got Bad Boys. You know what I'm saying? Because ever since
Yeah.
then, you've kind of been on the run and doing things and moving along, and we've got these other creations and stuff, which is great. But I think like now that you don't have kind of like all of these other things in the way, what can you create now with this
Yeah.
experience that you have? Because I think it's one thing to create a show and having no experience whatsoever, but I think it's very different for you to sit down now and think of what a show could look like, because I think maybe
Yeah.
season one would be even more amazing and more just thought out. Where, well, it could get picked up from anybody because I think it could be so amazing.
I agree. I agree. And on the bright side for the people who are gonna watch this who are like very sad about this, you never know. Maybe this time is needed so that me coming back it'd be an even bigger or better thing, or maybe I'd have a clearer mind and I can find a different way to enjoy doing this. You know what I'm saying? Like you never know what can happen. I think all the possibilities are out there, and I'm thinking
Yeah.
of so many different things to do and to create. That doesn't have to do with making these shows. So I'm like, I'm excited to try it out, and who knows, something can blow up out of one of those.
Yeah,
Who knows?
I'm definitely excited for it. I'm gonna throw in that there should probably a fashion brand, but I don't know if you have
I
the time for that.
I agree. I'm very into at the moment. I'm really looking into maybe creating like sexy swimwear. That'd be something really cool. I'm also into wanting to make music. I feel like that'd be something really fun. I think I'm just gonna push myself to do these fun new things, and then if something happens from it, great. If not, then I can still keep experimenting. But I already have the name of the project, which I'm like,
Well, I love it. And at least it's exciting to know it is not a hiatus. It is just a time to find what is next, which means hopefully we won't see you disappear on social media. We'll still get the fashions on
yeah.
Instagram.
Hey, yeah, I'll try not to disappear, but you know,
I mean, a couple of weeks is fine. I wasn't ready for like a year of no posts from Karan at these amazing restaurants in these amazing outfits. That's where we need to be at.
thank you, thank you. I love that you said that. That just made me blush.
Listen, I love fashion and I love like when people take time to get dressed up. For everybody listening on this podcast, a majority of people are lazy and you guys don't want to get dressed up to go anywhere or do anything, and it is making me very very sad to see people in the airport looking crazy and to see people at the grocery store looking crazy. No shade. I can understand like once in a while you have like an issue or whatever and you have to go out looking crazy, but like every day is really sad to
Yeah,
me that you're not.
yeah, yeah. You want to give it up, and like it's fun. It's like why not dress up and get all like, why not? It's so much fun.
Right. I feel like that's something free. Well, not free because the fashions are expensive, but um, it is something that you don't have to go out of your way to do, to just get dressed up, to go out and do something like, especially maybe it's different too. Working from home, you have like a very different perspective on things because you don't go out as much to like work. So you get dressed up to go out everywhere you go because you're like, oh, I'm outside. But nonetheless, I think people should definitely get dressed up.
I agree.
Thank you so much for joining us today and kind of telling your life story in a very different way and being able to really open up. And I really am excited that we got to make this happen. I know that fans are going to be very excited to learn about you, things that they probably don't know that we talked about today on the podcast. But I also think that this is kind of amazing timing for us to also kind of have this conversation and then see what's next in this amazing journey of seeing what you can create and what you can build in this new chapter. And I'm so excited to kind of be a part of this end of this last chapter.
Yeah.
Help wrap it out. So I'm so excited to have you here. For everybody listening, we obviously will have all of Karan's social media tagged in the description below. So go over to YouTube and check it out. For those of you listening on Spotify, head over to YouTube where you can go ahead and watch the video. You can also get all the stuff out of the description. If you are not currently watching Bad Boys, you definitely should be watching Bad Boys. This season is a lot of the fan favorites, and let me, I might have to cut that. That's a little shady. They're gonna come for me for that. But thank you so much for joining us. Any last comments you would want your fans or anyone to know before we wrap?
um, I will say that now. I think just be open to the ideas of what's to come because I know that like sometimes when you transition into different things, a lot of people can be very turned off by that. I say just kind of give me grace on whatever it is I'm working on. And again, that could mean that I am gone from social media for a while and trying to figure it out or whatever. I
Mhm.
know that like once this season is done, I'm going on like a spiritual journey and finding myself and kind of becoming one with the world and meditating and therapy and all that stuff just because I feel like it's very necessary to try.
Right.
So, I'll be gone, but also I'll be healing and learning and loving and all that stuff as well. So just yeah, be open to when I make that post on Instagram and you're like, is this an album or is this a swimwear line or oh okay. Just know that one, the visuals is going to be sick because anyone who knows me knows I'm going to give it up in the see, and this is what I mean. Like, there's always still going to be a part of something of that film in there because shooting the
Right.
commercial, doing the photo shoot, or a music video or whatever, like there's always still going to be that kind of like creative aspect. So yeah, I just know that it's going to eat whatever it is. Whenever I come out with whatever it is, it's going to eat, and it's going to be like, you know, it's going to be
Period.
dope.
Period. And if you're a fan that doesn't support it, you were never a real fan to begin with. And on that note, I want to thank you for being here on Girl Bye. Everybody will have a new episode every Monday at 6 p.m. where we will bring you a little shade, a little fun, a little laughter, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Girl, bye.
Girl, bye.
Girl, bye.
Girl,
Girl, bye.
bye.
Bye, girl, bye.